welcome Ross Bernstein.
Awesome. I am excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. This is pretty cool because I keynote about 130 events a year, but these are my peeps. Like, I'm a member of this group, so I'm excited to be here. Very, very cool. So as you heard, I'm a sports nut. I've been a working member of the media for the past 20 plus years, working very closely here in Minnesota with our Vikings, our Twins, our Wild, our Wolves, our Gophers. I've had a lot of misery over the past 2 decades, if you know anything about our teams, which you do. But it's given me a very unique perspective, being in the locker room, in the press box, in the dugout, in the sideline. I've been able to meet some pretty interesting folks along the way. Now, my program this morning, the Champions Code, it's based specifically on 2 best-selling series of books that I've written. This top series, Raising Stanley, Raising Lombardi, this is all about what it took to hoist that trophy. I interviewed over 1,000 professional athletes and coaches for that series who all had one thing in common. They were all champions. And much like Jim Collins did in his iconic book, Good to Great, I was looking for the same sorts of trends and metrics and patterns and analytics that were common among those teams. The results were fascinating. Now, the bottom series is called The Code. Now, as you know in sports, we've got rules. There's black and white rules that have been designed to keep the game fair and honest. But mixed in between these black and white rules are some shades of gray. They're called unspoken, unwritten rules, or codes. And if you break these codes, well, there's consequences. And this is what leads to fighting in hockey or getting drilled in baseball. So my program, it's about winning with integrity. You're going to be tempted to take shortcuts along the way. And believe me, there's all sorts of sneaky, nefarious things athletes try to do to get an edge. And we try and do them sometimes in business too, especially when times are tough. But being a champion, it's about doing the little things the right way. As I've learned, champions, the people who we like, the people who we trust, the people who just get it, they've got a very unique DNA. So I want to challenge you to think about your DNA. There was a big Harvard research study that came out years ago that talked about the #1 overall predictor of success across any line of business. And this is what it was. So I'd say not so much in the commercial real estate business or the insurance business or financial services business. You're really in the relationship business. But it's not just about the number of Facebook friends you have. It's really about the quality of those relationships. And that's what my program this morning is really all about. So my first question is, why would someone choose to do business with you or your organization, or as a leader, be influenced by you? What's unique about you? What are the differentiators that really set you apart from everyone else? My mission this morning is to take you through things that aren't your business and make it your business. So I'm going to share with you 7 ideas. I know they only gave me a little bit of time. 7 ideas to drive sales and generate momentum. Momentum is a living, breathing thing. I've studied it my whole life. Great teams have it in sports, businesses have it, sales teams have it. It's lightning in a bottle, and hopefully I can challenge you to think a little bit differently. Sounds good? Let's dive in. #1, it all starts with passion. As you heard from Mike, you can't fake passion. You either love what you do or you don't. You're either obsessed with what you do or you don't. You're either real and authentic or fake and phony. And that was my guy, Kirby Puckett, Game 6, 1991 World Series. I was there, man. Anyone else there? We may have high-fived. I'm still hungover from that night. It was amazing. But when I think of Kirby and I think of his DNA, it's that smile on his face which pretty much says it all. You know the old cliche, find a job you love and never a day in your life? First one in the office, last one to leave? That was Kirby. He had this amazing attitude and it was infectious. Everybody loved Kirby Puckett. He was magnetic. He could bend energy. You know, Kirby used to tell me that whenever he'd come to work at the old Metrodome, whether it was a game or practice, he'd come to the players' entrance in the back of the stadium, and they had these big doors. And Kirby called them stage doors, because it really felt like every day when he came to work, he was going to be up on stage performing. And he had that performer's mentality. So he had to get his mind right. So every day he would literally step aside and he would check his ego at the door. I know it's cliche, but he literally would do it. He'd close his eyes and whatever issues or injuries he was doing that day, whatever drama was going on with his wife and kids, he said, you know what? I need to leave all that over there. Because when I walk through these doors, I got to bring it. It doesn't matter if I'm sick or tired. My teammates are counting on me. This organization, these fans, they're counting on me. And when he walked in, it was like Hurricane Kirby into their room. I mean, that smile, it was unbelievable. He knew everyone's name. He knew your wife's name, your kid's name. Always playing practical jokes, keeping everyone loosey-goosey. They called Kirby a gym rat because they just couldn't get rid of him. He'd come in his days off to hang out with the beer vendors, the parking guys, the ticket takers. He never thought he was better than anyone else. He just loved his job. If someone was having a bad day, Kirby's always the first guy to come over, pat you on the butt. Come on, man. Hang in there. They pay us to play baseball. Passion. Look, what are you really passionate about? See, here's the thing I've learned. If you're not really, truly, authentically passionate about what you do, then you might need to think about what you do. Because people choose to do business with, to be influenced by people who genuinely really love what they do. And this is why I love hanging around professional athletes. It's like the fountain of youth. These people love what they do. They do it for free. From the time they were little kids throwing a ball, high school, college, the minor leagues, to become a professional, an all-star, and Hall of Famer, to get to the tip of the pyramid and to stay there, it's about passion. That's the thing I've learned about sports. It's easy to get to the top, but it's really hard to stay at the top. And that's the essence of the dynasty mentality, about passion. Look, maybe you're really passionate knowing that you're part of an organization where you feel like you're really making a difference, changing people's lives. That's amazing. But maybe that's just your day job. And your real passion is hunting, or fishing, or golfing, or traveling, or spending time with your kids or grandkids. That's great, but that means you better be pretty darn good at your day job, so you have enough time and money and freedom, and the ability to say no to things you don't want to do. Otherwise, you're just pushing the rock up the hill. So today I want to challenge you to think about the intersection of passion and purpose. I want to challenge you to think a little bit differently. Number 2, be generous. Why? Because we like to do business with and be led by givers, not takers. That is Wayne Gretzky. Full disclosure, I had a full-blown stage 5 man crush on this guy as a kid. I'm not going to lie to you, it was awkward. I had posters of Wayne all over my bedroom walls. I've gotten to know him later in life. He couldn't be nicer. He's written forwards for a couple of my books. An amazing man. You know, as I learned, Wayne was the NHL's all-time leader in goals, and he was the all-time leader in assists. But he had twice as many assists than goals. I asked him about that one time, and he said, you know, a goal made one guy happy, but an assist made 2 guys happy. Wayne was a giver. I don't know if you can teach it, but I know we love to do business and be around giving people. My daughter scored her first hat trick in soccer a few summers ago, 3 goals. She also had an assist, and on the car ride home, I said, honey, I'm most proud of the assist. She said, why, Dad? I said, because great passes, they come straight from the heart. You have to want to sacrifice for the unknown, right? I mean, she could have scored that 4th goal. She was wide open right at the doorstep, but for some reason, at the last second, she stopped, she turned 90 degrees, she passed across the goal line with her buddy Carly. Carly hadn't scored in like 3 seasons. It was awesome. They fist bumped, they high-fived, they hugged it out. They talked about it afterwards over ice cream for about a half an hour. It was the greatest goal ever, as I learned, Dad. But that was the day I was really proud of my kid, because I learned she was a giver. And I don't think you can teach it. I just think it's in your DNA to want to give and to serve and help others. And that's what Wayne's DNA was all about. You see, Wayne wore the C on his sweater for the Edmonton Oilers. And that meant that as the captain, it was his responsibility to lead by example. That meant being the first guy on the ice every practice, the last guy off the ice every practice. I asked Wayne one time about his legacy, how he'd want to be remembered when it was all said and done. He thought about it and he said, you know, I guess I'd just like to be remembered as the hardest worker in practice, the guy who helped his teammates the most. Wow. When your leader sets that kind of a tone, it's amazing how it just trickles down throughout the entire organization and filters back up. You know, in the media, when teams win, everybody's fat and happy. It's awesome. But when teams lose and there's problems, there's drama, we want to talk to the leader and we want answers. And after every game, no matter how bad the loss, there was Wayne, front and center at the podium, answering everyone's questions, forthright, direct, fully accountable, no excuses. Wayne, what's the problem? Team's in a slump. We're not hitting our numbers. What's going on, man? You know what Wayne would say? Guys, you're right. I'm sorry. I need to work harder. Please be patient with us. I'm going to come in earlier Monday morning and try and get things figured out, but please be patient with us. And don't blame those guys. This is on me. Wayne would never throw his teammates under the bus, no matter what, even if it was their fault. You see, he understood as a team's leader, it was his job. His purpose was to help make them better. So if the team wasn't playing well, that wasn't on them. That was on him. I mean, this guy actually enjoyed assists more than goals. Who does that? But he understood the power of the assist to help someone, to mentor someone. If one of his teammates is in a slump, Wayne would stay after practice and shoot a couple hundred pucks together. If he was homesick, Wayne would call a players-only meeting and take him out for beers. He understood it was his job to help build that man's confidence. Confidence, as Wayne learned, was the building block for momentum, and momentum was why Wayne's Edmonton Oilers won 4 Stanley Cups. So I guess I just want to challenge you to think about what your next great assist just might look like. Because I think at the end of the day, we choose to do business with givers, not takers. Number 2, be generous. Number 3, build trust. Why? Because people follow leaders who do what they say and say what they do. That's Pat Summitt. She's amazing. We lost her to Alzheimer's several years ago. At the time of her passing, she was the winningest coach in the history of college basketball, men or women. And for Pat, it was all about trust. Now, how many of you would say trust is an important part of what you do? We have a full-blown trust crisis in this country right now. Are you trustworthy? Can I trust you? Will you do what you say we do? Is it fake news? How do you build trust? It's a fascinating concept. I mean, we make hundreds of trust decisions every day, subconsciously, from the food we eat to the buildings we work in to the roads we drive on. You know, when I asked Pat about her legacy, she said she didn't want to be remembered so much for being a great coach, but rather for being a great teacher. And that's how she was able to really connect and build relationships and trust with young ladies. Not by teaching them how to be better basketball players, but how to be better human beings. And as a result, they fostered amazing relationships. But when I asked Pat about the secret sauce, how she won 7 national championships, became the winningest coach of all time, she said, Ross, it wasn't about having the best players. It was about having the right players. And as you think about your teams, as you ramp up, it's so hard to find and keep good talent. There's so much we can learn from sports that really applies directly to business. I mean, Pat said, look, if it was just about having the best players, the New York Yankees, Los Angeles Dodgers, they'd win it every year because on paper, they have the best players. But that's not what happens in sports. Sports, it comes down to chemistry and culture and everybody rowing the boat together in the same direction. So for Pat, it wasn't about getting that 5-star blue chip McDonald's All-American kid all the other coaches wanted. For Pat, it meant getting the right kid for her system. Otherwise, you're stuffing square pegs in the round holes all day, beating your head against the wall. So she wanted to find the right kid. And that meant doing her homework to find the right kid. And that meant recruiting these young ladies, not when they were juniors and seniors in high school like all the other coaches did, but when they were freshmen and sophomores. Now, this doubled the recruiting cycle. Man, getting in her car, getting on planes, being away from her own family, but she wanted to make sure she found the right kid for her system. So she studied them. She'd watch all their videotape. She'd go to their high schools unannounced. She'd pick into classrooms and see which kids would sit on the front row. Nice, good listeners. She'd go to practices and she'd sit in the top row of the bleachers with a big hat on, and she'd just watch kids and look for interesting things like body language. If they were really paying attention, how were they going to be on her team? She wanted to get to know them, so she invested. She took the time to get to know their parents and grandparents and teachers and coaches and counselors and friends. Friends? Yeah. People say people judge you by the friends you keep. Some of us might need new friends. But she wanted to get to know them. Which kids did drugs? Which kids got good grades? Which kids were winners in junior high and high school? Which kids were popular, likable, team leaders, captains? Which kids were coaches' kids? She loved coaches' kids. They had a totally different DNA. Which kids grew up on dairy farms like she did and shared her same incredible work ethic and spiritual values, things very important for her culture at the University of Tennessee? Which kids have respectful boyfriends, high-maintenance parents? All these things mattered to Pat. And when those parents trusted her with their most prized possession, their child, to come to Knoxville, Tennessee, they were all in. These kids loved Pat. Pat Summitt inspired greatness. That was her superpower. She could see their potential and she'd coach them up. She'd pull it out of them. But Pat was old school, fire and brimstone. She used to lead through fear and intimidation. The honeymoon was over quick. When you got there, she'd yell at you and scream at you, threaten to cut you and bench you and send you crying back to mommy. But then eventually Pat got older and these kids got younger. So Pat had to change her tune. It's hard to change. But to connect with young people today, you got to speak their language. Social media, texting, and understanding the power of praise. You'd still get that mile-long stare if you're screwed up, but then always a big hug, a warm embrace, some positive attributes. Hey, I'm so proud of you, you're doing a great job. Hey, I'm going to text you some YouTube videos, some things you can work on. I'll see you at the house Friday for the barbecue. These kids loved Pat. They worked extra hard for her. And when they graduated, and they did because Pat promised their parents, I learned that many of them would get the Lady Vols tattoo on their body at the senior ceremony. Now, how many of you guys, by a show of hands, have your corporate logos tattooed in your bodies? Jack, I think you got one. Anyone else? I recently keynoted Anytime Fitness's annual conference. Really cool company with great momentum right here in Minnesota. They're the largest fitness chain in the world. 5,000 franchise locations. After that presentation, they had their 1,500th franchisee hop up on stage and get all tatted up with everyone out there hooting and hollering. And it wasn't one of those little tattoos back here, peekaboo, where no one could see it. It was a big sucker, a giant purple cartoon caricature of the Anytime Fitness Running Menu logo tattooed on their bicep. More than a third of their franchisee owner-operators have that tattoo as a reminder about the difference between a job and a career. One's transitional, one's forever. Do you know what I learned about Anytime Fitness franchisees? I learned that they don't run gyms, and I learned that they sure as heck don't sell health club memberships. You know what they do? Plain and simple. They help to change people's lives. What do? Sell software, homes, insurance, accounting. One's a job, one's a career, and I want to challenge you to think a little bit differently about relationships, about how you build them, why you build them. We all talk about being the trusted advisor, but I want to challenge you to rethink everything about who you surround yourselves with. This morning at one of the mentor tables, I was talking about a lot of the companies I work with, hiring the right people. They don't recruit farm kids, they recruit dairy farm kids. Why? Because cows don't take days off. They love these kids. Some companies I work with, they're only going to hire Division I athletes, not football players or basketball players, women's volleyball players, softball players. Why? Because they're coachable, they're disciplined, they're great at learning, they're competitive. You've got to start hiring and thinking differently. But I want to challenge you to raise your game to the next level. Number 4, lead with respect. Why? Because reputation isn't what you say about you, it's what everybody else says about you. That is Harmon Killebrew. I am bringing you guys down memory lane. All my childhood heroes. Love Harmon. I miss him. He was a dear friend. Yeah, now he and Kirby are both up above rooting on our twins. And if you can hear me, we stink, Harmon. We've lost 18 straight playoff games. I'm sorry, was that out loud? Sometimes I just go there, but I digress. You know, I told you before about Wayne Gretzky. Wayne was a servant leader. Wayne would never throw his teammates under the bus. No way. Harmon? Well, Harmon was the opposite. Harmon was a guy with no filter who actually really enjoyed throwing his teammates under the bus. It wasn't a popular thing to do, but it was the right thing to do. See, Harmon's what we call a clubhouse guy. And I will tell you that in professional sports, these are the most valuable players. Now, you've got clubhouse gals on your teams too, but these are your veterans. Harmon's contract wasn't measured in home runs and RBI like all the other players. Harmon's job was to make sure that little problems didn't turn into big problems. Harmon was a mole. You got a mole? How do you really know what's going on back at your office right now? You're here. See, in baseball, they got to know what's going on behind the curtain. And that was Harmon's role, to make sure that little problems didn't escalate. Because baseball is a crazy game. And if you're a manager, a coach in baseball, you're trying to keep all the plates spinning, it's nuts. It's a 162-game long season. It's twice as long as any other sport. Plus preseason, plus postseason. And there's so much drama in baseball. I mean, you're managing huge egos. You walk into a dugout, you got blacks, whites, Jews, Muslims, Latinos, Dominicans, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Venezuelans, Cubans, Japanese, Taiwanese, Koreans, Australians. It's nuts in there. Now you've got a 4-game road trip on top of that to Boston, Chicago, New York, LA. You got even more drama because tonight all the cool kids are going out to dinner, just the cool kids. And these guys, Well, these guys want to talk this language, and this guy hates that guy, and this guy wants to listen to this music in the locker room, and this guy's chasing that guy's girlfriend. If you're a manager in baseball, you ain't got time to deal with all that drama. Because in baseball, they got what they call a shared vision. And what that means is that when your team sucks, they fire everybody. That's just how it is in baseball. You get 2 years to turn it around, win, make the playoffs, or you're gone. These billionaire owners don't care who you are. They want to win. They want an ROI. They want championships. And if you can't get it done, they're going to find somebody else who can. So what managers have realized is they lean on their most respected veteran leaders, the clubhouse guys, to do the dirty work. I mean, Harmon didn't get to wear the C in his jersey like Gretzky, but make no mistake, Harmon was the captain of practice, making sure guys worked hard enough. Harmon was captain on road trips, making sure guys got in before curfew, got them sleeping to do something stupid to embarrass team. Harmon just kept providing the value to the organization, and they couldn't get rid of him. But that was Harmon's role, was to do the dirty work. And as you think about your teams, as you expand, as you grow, to keep your culture, you need veteran clubhouse guys and gals to make sure that little problems don't turn into big problems. You need someone with no filter to say, hey, coach said team bus leaves at 9, not 9:05. Come on, man. Hey, run out every ground ball. I don't care if we're out by 10 runs, 20 games in the first place. These fans paid good money to be here. Some of these little kids, this might be the only ball game they get to see all year. Make it count. Several years ago, I was at an autograph show, and I was there signing my sports books, and Harmon was there. Wow. And 2 rock stars from my Minnesota Twins were there. Joe Mauer, Justin Morneau. 2 guys at the time making about $35 million between the 2 of them. Everybody wanted to meet Justin and Joe. Their line was around the corner, so they're just signing. It was like an assembly line. They were just sitting there, head down. They'd just take your ball and... I mean, it was like a squiggly line. You could barely even read it. Now, Harmon looks over and sees this, and Harmon gets upset. Harmon's old school. So he very calmly, very casually excuses himself and walks over, and he stops his line. Excuse me, I'll be right back. Then he walks all the way over to Justin and Joe's line, and he stops their line. And I'm watching this because, sadly, there's nobody in my line. So all of a sudden the line stops. Justin and Joe look up. Hey, Harmon, how you doing, buddy? What's going on? Hey, you guys are going kind of fast, huh? Yeah, long line. What's up? Well, you can slow down. Slow down. He threw these guys under the bus and read them the riot act. Their eyes were like saucers. They'd never been talked to like this. But Harmon let them have it. He said, if these fans are going to honor you with the privilege of asking for your signature, you show them respect. Do it the right way or don't do it at all. See that ball? That is a Harmon Killebrew signed baseball. And what you will notice about it is that it's perfect in every way. It's a long name, but it's beautifully, cursively written. They've been that way since the early 50s, growing up in Payette, Idaho, to the day he died. And Harmon didn't just stop there. He would always very purposely take it, he would turn, and he would center the ball. It was an extra step, but he always wanted his signature to be right between the laces. So you got it home and put it in your book shelf, and just looked fantastic. And Harmon, he didn't just give you the ability to get perfectly centered ball every time. Nope, Harmon Killebrew under-promised, and he over-delivered. We love when people do that, right? He always gives you something extra underneath. Maybe it was career home runs, the year he's inducted in the Hall of Fame. You never knew. It was always a surprise. And while he was signing it, he'd look you in the eyes and ask you about you. Everybody's favorite subject. A memory of a lifetime. And he would consistently do it for a 1-year-old kid who's probably going to slobber on it, or some shady-looking dude who's going to have it for sale on eBay later that night. Harmon Killebrew was the glue, the galvanizing force, the voice of reason that held his teams together. And as you think about your teams, I want to challenge you to think about who your clubhouse guys and who your clubhouse gals are, your veterans, making sure that little problems don't turn into big problems. Because you need a culture in today's day and age where people see something, it's okay to say something. Like, hey, we don't put decimal points there. Hey, we have safety protocols for a reason. Come on, man, we have a lawsuit, someone get hurt. And hey, hashtag me too, don't talk to her that way. You need a culture where people see something, it's okay to say something. Today I'm here to challenge you to think a little bit differently. Number 5, build your relationships through philanthropy. I'm going to flip here a little bit. The first part of my program is really about the why, and the second part is a little bit more about the how. Why? Because giving back isn't just good purpose, it's good business. But I think you've really got to be able to share your story to connect. Now, as entrepreneurs, we all have stories. We love stories, right? We all learned about stories from Walt Disney as little kids, reading books and watching movies. Mom, read me that book again. So I'm going to share with you briefly my signature story. As speakers, we have signature stories. It's about how my biggest failure became my biggest success. But I want to ask you first, how many of you with your companies have a giving program? How many of you give or serve your communities? Okay, great. How about personally, kids, school, church? Again, I want you to challenge you to think how this can really grow your business, because I'm involved in a lot of charities, and it's massively grown my business. But I got one in particular that I want to share with you, the story. Now, my story begins, like most entrepreneurs, in a small town where I grew up. I mean, I had a snowplow business, I had a lawn mowing business, I lived in a golf course, I'd find golf balls and sell them back to the golfers, I had lemonade stands. I was very entrepreneurial, like many of you, from a very young age. I want to make money and buy video games and do all that kind of stuff. But I grew up, my passion was sports. I love sports. It's always been my passion. The problem was, I just wasn't very good in sports. In the middle is my number 10 purple Vikings Fran Tarkenton jersey. It literally turned brown because I slept in it every night. Notice my fly is down there too. Nice. Thanks, Mom. But my whole world changed in 1980 when, as a 10-year-old kid, I watched The Miracle on Ice. This rocked my world. This fiery coach, Herb Brooks, my hero from Minnesota, led a bunch of college kids past the Soviet Union, the greatest hockey team ever assembled, a team that hadn't lost a game in 20 years. It was such a big deal, they called it a miracle on ice. I said, Mom, Dad, I want to play hockey. Now you have to understand something about southern Minnesota. This is basketball country, wrestling country. This isn't like northern Minnesota, Roseau, Warroad, where they actually pull the kids out of the wombs by their skate blades. This is different, okay? But I begged my parents to please let me go to the Herb Brooks hockey camp. He had a hockey camp that year. They said, fine, you can go. So we went to the coast-to-coast hardware store, and I got all the stuff, and I was what you call an ankle bender. Any hockey moms out there? I was one of these guys. You know who I am. And I remember one day in practice, Herbie came up to me. He was larger than life. He put his arm around me, and he said, way to go, Ross. He knew my name because it was written with tape on my head. And he actually gave me an award. Now, I don't know if you guys give out awards in your companies, and if you do, if you get one, congratulations. But in hockey, they give this award to the guy who sucks the most. And that was me. And Southern Minnesota hockey, it's old school. We weren't like you rich cake eaters from me dining with your fancy Zambonis, okay? Where I grew up, we had shovels. And we didn't have fancy buses driving us to games. All the farm kids had vans and pickup trucks. You'd have the chain-smoking parents up front, and the nuclear hockey equipment smell of that would pile in. And as you're about to see, as a freshman in high school, I became the starting left defenseman for the mighty Fairmont Cardinal / Domino's Pizza hockey team. That's right. We were pretty badass. Now, what you can't see there is I had a sweet mullet going on back there. A moulet for any of you Iron Rangers, but I digress. But you know, that's how it is in a small town. I got to play 3 varsity sports as a freshman. Not because I was any good, but we literally needed warm bodies. Not like today where our kids have to specialize and just do one sport. But I digress. Well, I had a choice to make as a high school senior. Small college football, or I could be a Golden Gopher. And in Minnesota, if you're not from Minnesota, this is our thing. It's like Indiana basketball, Texas football. It's so damn cold here. Hockey is our thing, right? We all wish the Wild were playing a little bit better, but come on. This is our thing, and I love the Gophers. My family bled maroon and gold. My mom and dad were Gophers. My big brothers were Gophers. In the late 80s, they were a powerhouse. All these kids got drafted. They played professionally. I went. I got season tickets. It was amazing. And then guess what? Winter semester rolls around. Turns out they got a class you can take. It's called Introduction to Ice Hockey 101. It's the underwater basket weaving class, the one credit FIED course the players taught allegedly for their scholarships. So I took this class, and for 3 days a week, for 1 hour, I got to skate in Mariucci Arena with actual, real-life Gopher hockey players. It was unbelievable. I wound up becoming friends with a bunch of guys in the team. I'd invite them over to my fraternity parties where we drink beer, allegedly. And after a while, I got to know a bunch of guys, and they said, you know, Ross, you're not that bad of a hockey player. Why don't you try out for the team? Why don't you walk on to the varsity? I said, come on, I'm from Fairmont. They said, doesn't matter, we like you. We want to hang with you. You make us laugh. And this is where I learned about the most powerful soft skill of all, likability. Really? You guys want to hang with me? Yeah, go for it. We'll pass you the puck. So I took this insane leap of faith, and I walked on to play hockey at the University of Minnesota. And it was a thrill of a lifetime. I was a pylon out there, but I was out there. And sure enough, my new buddies were passing me the puck. I was scoring goals. They were building my confidence. And after a while, I thought, you know what? Maybe I am good enough to play hockey at the University of Minnesota. But I had to do something to make a statement, something for the coaches to finally notice me and put me in the lineup. And one day, an opportunity presented itself when our team captain, Todd Richards, All-American defenseman, future NHL star, future coach of the Minnesota Wild, came down one-on-one. I said, this is it. This is my moment. I'm going to take out our star player right in front of the coaches. They're going to have to notice me, have to win the lineup, right? I mean, it's like the first day of prison. You shank the biggest dude in the yard on day one, hope that word gets out. You're going to have a very uncomfortable evening. I saw that in the movie. Okay. So Richards is coming at me. He sees me coming. He knows I'm going to nail him, and it's like he doesn't even brace himself. I'm like, okay, dude, this is going to hurt. Now, Richards, on this particular practice, he's wearing this really weird jersey. I'd never seen anything like it before. It was all white with a big red cross on the front and back. That can only mean one thing: bullseye. I lined up the crosshairs, and wham! I sent him flying. It was the greatest hit of my life, right in front of the coaches. Woo-hoo! I'm going in. Whew. It's fuzzy from here. But I remember flying through the air backwards. When I landed back there and came to from literally being knocked unconscious, this explains the Dane Bramage, I awoke to one of our assistant coaches, a former goon with our Minnesota North Stars, a professional fighter with one hand around my neck, the other in a fist, ragdolling me, screaming, "You idiot! What are you doing? Our team captain is wearing a Red Cross jersey today. That means he's injured." "I'm sorry, Coach. I had the pizza jersey. I didn't get the memo." Well, Coach Wood called me into his office after practice. "Kid, this is the end of the line. I gotta let you go. Turn in your playbook." And that was the day my dream of hoisting the Stanley Cup died. I was devastated. But it turned out, unbeknownst to me, there was another job opening on the team. Now, it wasn't quite as sexy as All-American defenseman, my first choice, but it was close. Team mascot, Goldie the Gopher. Now, there were two criteria for the job. You had to be a decent skater and a moron. I apparently fit on both accounts and became a giant, smelly rodent. That's actually me inside there. I don't think they actually cleaned that costume since the Grover Cleveland administration. But I made lemonade out of lemons. I got to become a cheerleader, which is pretty awesome. I was the only dude in that squad. And just took it to practice with the team and hang with the guys. And I had a blast being a mischievous mascot. And I got in a lot of trouble. In fact, I got into so much trouble that after a game one night as a senior, a publisher approached me and said, "Kid, we've been watching you. We'd like to write a book about all the trouble you got into. Apparently, it's not appropriate to throw Kraft cheese singles at the Wisconsin band." Who knew? Cheeseheads. If you throw them just right, they stick, but you get in a lot of trouble. Anyways, I said, "Look, I'm flattered. Other than my grandmother, who's going to want to read this book?" But it kind of spawned the idea. What if I wrote a book about the history of Gopher hockey from Goldie the Gopher's point of view? That's not bad. So I called my mom and my dad and I said, "Mom, Dad, I have a career announcement." Now, about my graduate school money. Now, my mom and dad worked very hard at our family furniture stores in southern Minnesota so that I could go to grad school. My two big brothers had already gone on to get their Ivy League MBAs, and this is what they wanted me to do. And I said, "Look, I'm not interested in this college thing anymore. I said, I don't want to go to grad school. I want to work in sports. That's my passion. So I want to use my money to write and publish a book about the history of Gopher hockey from Goldie the Gopher's point of view." I remember the words failure, disappointment, a lot of four-letter words. This conversation did not go well. I'm sure many of you have been there. But it ended with my dad saying, "You know what? Fine. You can have your money, but you better not come crawling back to me when it's all gone." I said, "Great, I'll take it." So I dove in and I started writing this book. Now, trust me when I tell you that as a 21-year-old college senior, I knew absolutely nothing about writing books or publishing books or editing books or reading books. If you saw my grades, you know I'm not kidding. But this is my destiny. This is my passion. 5 days into my book project, serendipitously, out of the blue, I got a phone call that changed my life from Herb Brooks, coach of the 80 Olympic hockey team, who's now coaching in the National Hockey League. Ross, heard about your book. I want in. I'll be home in a few weeks. Let's get together. I want to help you out. Whoa. I didn't know what to expect, but it was life-changing. We got together and Herbie explained to me how important this book was. Herbie explained to me that his passion was to grow the game and get more kids playing hockey in southern Minnesota and California and Texas and Florida. And he explained to me how this book was going to change lives. He told me that years earlier, he drove nearly 4 hours through a blizzard all the way to Fairmont, my hometown, to start a youth hockey program. He said, Ross, if you really believe in something, you got to get in your car. You got to get in a plane and you got to go meet people face to face. And they got to feel your passion, your obsession. And you got to be able to explain the differentiators about why your product is better than the other guy's product. Tell those parents, your kids shouldn't be playing basketball. They should be playing hockey. Give them the tools, be a cheerleader, and it's amazing. Ross, the wider we build the base of this pyramid, the higher we can go. And he helped me. He called all these famous hockey players and said, hey, get together with my buddy Ross. He's going to write this book. It'll be good for hockey. And lo and behold, as a senior in college, I wrote my first book, Gopher Hockey by the Hockey Gopher. And it became a cult bestseller. I was off to the races, doing book signings in the Mall of America, radio interviews, TV interviews. CEOs that see me on TV and they go, hey kid, we saw you on TV. Will you come talk to our company? Tell us what you learned? We'll pay you. Whoa, you'll pay me to talk? How awesome is that? After about the third printing, I got a phone call from my old man. It was a tough call for him to make, but he said, hey, I'm proud of you. Everybody thought you were going to fail, myself included, but then he told me something I never forgot. He said, look, I know you want to work in sports, kiddo, but there's no jobs in sports. You're not a former athlete. You're not the son of the owner of the team. You got lucky with this first book, but these books have a shelf life of about 1 year. You have to reinvent yourself every year, and it's going to be really hard. But he said, this is really what you want to do. If this is your passion, he said, follow your dream, and I'll support you, but only if you follow your dream. He said, follow your dream, otherwise, you're going to spend the rest of your damn life working for somebody else who did. Nearly 50 sports books later, I somehow made a career out of it. Along the way, I got to become good friends with Herb Brooks. In fact, such good friends that years later, I got a phone call one day out of the blue, and it was Herbie, and he said, Ross, I'm ready to write that book, and guess what? You're going to write it. Whoa, like the voice of God. Got to spend almost a year working on the book with my hero, my mentor. Flash forward to the weekend of August 11, 2003. Herb and I were golfing in a charity golf tournament up in northern Minnesota, raising money for a great cause. Herb had to leave early that day. He had a speaking engagement in Chicago with a big pharmaceutical company. We said our goodbyes by the 11th hole. I was excited. It's going to be a game changer for me out on the circuit. Herb Brooks, my hero. And I remember settling in for that 3-hour ride home. I turned on the radio and I heard the news. Herb didn't make it. He was killed in a car accident driving home that day. If you're a hockey fan, you remember that moment. And I remember pulling over and crying and thinking, what can I do? And then I turned on the radio and I just listened to people calling in, talking about what hockey had meant to their family, how it had been woven throughout the fabric of their communities. And eventually I came upon the crash site on the side of the road up near Forest Lake and kind of lost and thought, what can I do? Because this guy, he really inspired me. So I decided to turn our book project into a memorial and create the Herb Brooks Foundation. I bought a copy. That's from my new friend Jack Daly. I'm looking forward to hearing you later about you're a California boy, but you know you're a hockey fan. And I just decided, what can I do? So we created the Herb Brooks Foundation with his family, and now it's been amazing. We give opportunities for kids to play sports. So disadvantaged kids, kids whose parents are in the military, kids with special needs, Down syndrome, autism. It's just been amazing. We've literally raised millions of dollars to help kids play sports. We own a rink up in Blaine at the Super Rink, and the women's Olympic team trains there, and of course they're gold medal champions, and we get rock stars from the Minnesota Wild to come to our golf tournament. Did I mention we raised millions to help kids? That's what's been so amazing about this organization. See, that's the thing about charity. It's such an amazing empowerment tool to connect you to people, to build relationships. I think that, and this is why I've been able to do thousands of television and radio programs over the years, and I've never paid for one of them. Why? Because I'm never trying to sell a book. I'm trying to sell the outcome of the book. And of course they're going to put me on TV because I'm not trying to sell anything. We're just trying to raise money to solve pediatric cancer or autism or whatever it might be. There's an old saying, as you know, people don't want to be sold, but they sure love to buy, especially from people who share their values. And for me, sports is a universal language. Whether I'm talking rugby in New Zealand or cricket in South Africa, people speak sports. I think great organizations are known for giving. One of my favorite companies is a local company called Starkey. Maybe you guys are familiar with their hearing aid company. It's a $6 billion medical device company. But they're not really known for their hearing aids. They're known more for their philanthropy. See, their founders, Bill and Tawny Austin, their passion is to watch kids hear for the first time. So they have these mission trips. They go to Haiti and Ghana and Liberia, and they give away hearing aids. It's unbelievable. Their social media is brilliant with amazing video. Little kids hearing their parents speak for the first time. It's incredible. My wife and I go to their gala, the Solo World May Hear Gala, over in St. Paul. And every year at their gala, they raise $10 million. It's incredible. It's an A-list celebrity event. They fly in their own dime because they want to be a part of this organization because they give. I get to speak at their annual expo in Las Vegas, but I'm what they call a mini keynote speaker. You see, I'm right in between President Bush and President Clinton. Talk about bipartisanship. Turns out everyone can agree on hearing health. In a massively commoditized business of hearing aids, Starkey has completely differentiated themselves and quite frankly kicked ass through their philanthropy. And no, they're not the low-cost leader. They're not the Walmart of hearing aids. In fact, it's the opposite. They're the most expensive. But people are willing to do business with them because they give and they serve. And that's my challenge to you. Every one of us as entrepreneurs or wantrepreneurs has a story. We need to think about how it ties to what we do. Think about how you give back and serve the communities that have served you. So I want you to think about how you give, why you give. And not just you, your clients, your prospects. Get involved. Use LinkedIn. Philanthropy is a game changer. I'm involved in about 10 charities, and it massively grows my business. Today I'm here to challenge you to think a little bit differently. Number 6, take risks. Why? Because now more than ever, we're going to have to try some new things, right? I mean, it's been crazy, but you got to try new things, even if that means failing every once in a while. Now, I need you to know that I am a die-hard Minnesota Vikings fan. I love the Vikings, but I would please, like one freaking Super Bowl before I die. Is that too much to ask? We've already lost 4. I'm not getting any younger, and I need you all to know how much I hate the Green Bay Packers. These are awful people, causing me pain and suffering and misery for decades. And when they decided they were going to send their guy, Brent Favre, to my Minnesota Vikings, after 16 seasons with these filthy cheeseheads crushing us week in and week out, I got to tell you, it felt very dirty rooting for this guy. He took a risk, so I took a risk. And I wrote a book about my true bipolar feelings about Brett called I Love Brett Favre. I hate Brett Favre. I love Brett Favre. I hate Brett Favre. This book is for Brian. Brian, give it up for Brian. He's quarterback this whole thing. This is for your bathroom library. All this you got over there. But look, I didn't know if I was going to be rich or in prison when this book came out. But when the announcers on Monday Night Football started flipping it, laughing hysterically in front of 40 million people, it went viral. Look at that, Mom. Super Target bestseller end cap. There I am next to Rachel Ray, Dan Brown, Nelson Mill, Joel Osteen. That's 2 facings across from toothpaste. You can't buy that real estate. I built a brand. I thought, how was I ever going to top that? Well, it's funny you should ask, because the next year I got real cocky. I took a big risk, and I wrote that. And it was a disaster. I mean, the hubris of me thinking after all these sports books I could do a book about politics. Well, get this. Walmart thought it was a clever idea. They called and said, you know what? We think this is going to be a big seller. We'd like to put this at the cash register of all of our stores coast to coast for about 6 months leading up to the election. What do you think? I said, I think that's great. I'd like to buy a second home in Tahiti. But then Sarah decided, maybe I won't run for president after all. And that's the day I got a phone call personally from the senior vice president of sales at Walmart to tell me I could cancel the entire order. Oh, I'd already printed the entire order. Trust me when I tell you that it's literally a quadruple dumpster fire you don't want to see. But you know what I learned? I learned it's okay to fail. If I go around the room, I'm sure there's nothing but stories of failure here, right? I mean, go read the bio of every Fortune 500 CEO, and what you're going to read? Failure, 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 success. Just fail fast and perform the autopsy. There's so many challenges now, from COVID to hiring people to Roe v. Wade and insurrections and politics and midterms and supply chain issues. And there's so many things happening right now. But you know what? Try something new. Look at all the opportunities that came on the heels of World War II and the Great Depression and 9/11, the Great Recession of 2009 and the pandemic of 2021. Now is the time to try something new. I'm here to challenge you to think a little bit differently. And lastly, think hard about your legacy. Why? Because it matters. It matters to you and your families, your teammates, your customers. And I want to leave you with two things. Number one, your why. My colleague Simon Sinek wrote a great book about starting with why. And for me, that's my why. And I'm guessing for most of you, that's why you got out of the rat race working for the man and said, you know what? I'm going to make my own business. I'm an entrepreneur. And for me, that's what I've created, a lifestyle business. I speak at about 130 conferences a year. I get to travel with my wife and kid. And my kid, one of the metrics I keep score is my kid became Delta Airlines' youngest ever diamond medallion at the age of 13. So we travel a lot. And this is why I love to do it, because every event we speak at leads to another new adventure. And I came to the conclusion that, unlike many of you who are chasing that squirrel, I don't want to make millions for my business. But you know what? To make $1 million, you can live a very comfortable life living right here in Minnesota. Travel the world, have no debt, and you just get to hang with your family. Someone you don't want to work with them, you don't have to work with them. You know, in my EO forum, hearing all the problems about payroll taxes and hiring people and firing people, I'm like, man, no thanks. I'm never going to have an employee, I'm never going to have a building, and I net everything to the bottom line. It's a very different business model. But for me, it creates happiness, and that's my why. And I want to encourage you to start thinking, what is it that you really want? Because we're all chasing that next thing. But for me, it's just more adventures. That's what it's all about. Just more trips around the world where you get to enjoy yourself. And that's what I want to do. And lastly, I want you to leave you with my buddy Herb Brooks. I don't know how many guys saw the movie Miracle. It's a Disney movie where Kurt Russell plays Herbie in the movie. A lot of people don't know this, but Herbie actually died during the making of the movie. And the producers of Disney came to me and they said, hey, what can we use from your book in the movie? And I prophetically just asked Herbie about his legacy, and he said, the name on the front of the jersey was always more important than the name of the back of the jersey. It was always we and us, never I and me. And they used that line in the movie, which is really cool. So, Herb's favorite poet is a woman named Linda Ellis. We talk about her a lot in the speaker world, but we see that picture on the right of the tombstone. And so we've all got that little line in what Linda calls the dash. She writes great poems. She's pretty amazing. But that was Herbie's favorite poem. He used to always talk about it. But, we've all got that number on the left, and the one on the right comes quick. Just lost my mom not so long ago, and comes quick, and all you get between is a little line. I want you to think about your line, about why you're here, about what you do, and your contribution, if you mattered, if you made a difference, and about all the little things. I think Herbie really made a difference. Herb had this acronym he used for every major decision he made in life. He called it QTL, quality, time, left. How much you got? Are you living a passionate, purposeful life, or are you pushing the rock up the hill? What do you want to be when you grow up? That's what today is really all about, figuring that out. I heard this old proverb, and it changed the way I run my business. It goes like this. Days and weeks and months drag on, but years fly by. If you've got kids, then you know what I'm talking about. You know that old saying, you're only as happy as your unhappiest kid. And that's why I'm all in, man, trying to work hard so I can play hard. And, that's what it's all about. It's about doing the little things. And, wait, what? A bonus 8th point? That's right. Harmon always taught me. Under-promise, over-deliver. You know what? Have fun. Why? Because we like to do business with and be led by fun, funny, positive, nourishing, passionate people. And I know it's cliche, but it's true. Age, it truly is just a number. Have fun. Like my buddy Julia the Hurricane Hawkins. She's 105 years old. She's a competitive runner in Louisiana, and guess what? She wins every race she competes in. You know why? There's nobody else in her age group. How great is that? Look, being a champion is a choice. It's your choice. And just like Kirby Puckett, every morning when you walk through those stage doors, you get to decide what your attitude is going to be. Positive, smiling, fun, or negative and toxic. But remember, winning just for the sake of winning, it's fleeting, it's hollow, it's not sustainable. There's a fine line between cheating and gamesmanship in sports, in business, in life. Follow your moral compass, your true north. You're going to be tempted to take shortcuts along the way, but don't. Don't wind up like Lance and Bernie from hero to zero on my wall of shame. Remember, individuals win games, but it takes a team to win a championship. And it's been my honor to be a member of the EO Minnesota team today. Thank you all for coming. Thanks. It's going to be amazing. I know what's coming up. Great